Hey, what's up everyone? It's your boy Joe. Today we got a cool video. Hopefully you think it's cool. We're gonna be building a PC. It's not the first PC I've ever built, but it's the first one that's mine and I get to keep. I've had gaming laptops up until this point to get me through school and a little bit of gaming here and there, but nothing hardcore, nothing crazy, just kind of budget value gaming laptops. So now I went ahead and got all the parts from Micro Center earlier today, and I'm kind of clearing up some space in my soon-to-be office area, so we can set that up. And yeah, so here's a list of the parts. Before we get started, the workspace I'm in is a little cluttered, so it might be a little messy because I haven't organized it yet. And for this build, I'm kind of going a lot off of Austin Evans' build from Micro Center. It's about roughly a $900 build. And then I also did some research, watched some Linus Tech Tip videos. I used PC Parts Picker to kind of spec out my computer, help kind of organize everything so I can keep track of what I wanted and make sure everything's compatible. And I also had a couple friends who are very PC literate, more than me. I know a little bit, but still kind of not a pro. So but yeah, so here's some of the parts. First off, for my case, I got an NZXT H510. It's the white one. It's the micro ATX case. Looks really clean, looks really cool. I might sticker bomb it at some point. I have a bunch of stickers, I don't know where to put them, and this seems like the perfect candidate for all my stickers, but I don't know. It also looks really clean without anything, so I'm still debating on that. And yeah, it has a tempered glass side too, so you can see inside if you're trying to flex and show off your internals. Now for the case, it was roughly around 70 bucks. It's not bad. Definitely solid, especially with how nice it is. For my GPU, I got the AMD, the Sapphire Radeon 5600 XT. Another quick thing, like I said, I'm not a pro, so if I say something wrong, like a name of a part or component, yeah, I might, so just a heads up. But yeah, so I went with this. I was ideally wanting to go with an RTX 2060 Super, but it was a little bit, it just kind of pushed the budget up. I already kind of went a little over my budget to begin with, since I didn't have a lot of peripherals that I would need. So yeah, I stuck with this in hopes that down the line, when after graduation and saving up some more, I'll upgrade to whatever's the latest and greatest then, or whatever the case is. We'll see. But I've heard plenty of things about this after watching videos from Austin Evans and Linus Tech Tips that this is pretty solid. It'll do good. It's good for a little bit of overclocking, but I feel like I might just keep it stock. We'll see how it goes. I don't know yet. But yeah. Now this GPU was an open box, so it was a little bit cheaper. I was willing to take the risk just to lower the budget. It was about $239. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. I guess I should have started with this probably. I'm doing a Ryzen 5 build, 3600X. I might have mentioned that already. But yeah, this is what I'm going with. I didn't get any extra cooler. From what I hear, the cooler that comes in the box, it comes with one first of all, and the one that comes in the box I heard is pretty good. It's the Wraith Spire cooler. I don't know the technical specific name for it, but I even might have gotten the name of it wrong already. But yeah, so that's that. Yeah, and this was about $249. So yeah. For RAM, I went ahead and got this G-Skill 3600 DDR4 RAM sticks, 16 gigs, 8 gigs each stick. This was just kind of what they had at Micro Center, which is where I got everything from. The guy kind of was just like, hey, we have these. They were on sale, I believe. I want to say they were like 80 or something like that. So yeah, that was fine. I wish they were RGB, but I mean, for the sake of the budget, I went with just this, and then I can always upgrade later. So yeah. For my board, I went with the Gigabyte B450M micro ATX board. I have a friend who, like I said, knows way more than me about building PCs. I'm just now getting back into PC building, and I don't know as much about like different components that are available, different companies, brands, parts, whatever. So he kind of helped me out there, and he said Gigabyte makes some solid boards. This is a good board to go with the Ryzen setup. And I did go with, actually, my case, I think I said it was micro ATX. It's mid ATX. I went with a bigger case than what the board is, just to have extra space, and just in case for whatever reason. And then also, generally, you'll get better airflow. I really want to have some good airflow out of this. I just want to kind of build a good, efficient build. Nothing crazy, nothing, you know, no crazy overclocking or anything like that. No crazy water cooling. Just some simple, good flow and some simple, good value components. Now this board, you can kind of see it here. It was $72.99, so it wasn't bad at all. I mean, roughly, other boards were like other manufacturers and stuff were about the same price. So, but yeah, so it wasn't bad. It has 4 slots, so that you can do up to, I believe, 64 gigs of RAM if you wanted to upgrade. But yeah, not bad. And for my power supply, I went with this power spec, 80 plus bronze, 650 watt power supply, and it was about 80 bucks. So yeah, I believe it's semi-modular. Yeah, semi-modular. So yeah, this should hopefully take care of all that. Yeah, it was just what they had. I know right now with everything going on, this pestilence going on in the world, power supplies I've heard are kind of hard to come by, and even the guy at the store said they're kind of running low, but they had a bunch of power spec ones, which was kind of nice. And yeah, even looking online, there was a bunch of other brands that I couldn't really find stuff for. So, but yeah, this was there at Micro Center. So cool. Yeah, Micro Center was a sweet place. It's my first time ever going there, and they had pretty much everything. All their staff was pretty helpful. It was surprisingly busy, but they do have some precautions. Everyone's wearing masks and gloves when you walk. Oh, excuse me. When you walk in, they offer you gloves, and they spray your hands with hand sanitizer if you'd like. They ask you if you want it, and then they put up shielding and ask you to stay 6 feet apart. They put tape on the floors for when you're in lines and stuff, and they have certain aisles set up so they're one way so that it's not too much traffic. Yeah, it was decent. So yeah, if you have a Micro Center near you, which I think there's only one here in the Chicagoland area, I don't know, there might be another somewhere farther out of the city. But yeah, check it out. Who knows? They had also good deals. Their prices were pretty good compared to what I saw online. They were either better or on par with everything, or most everything. So yeah, wasn't a bad experience at all. So we now got the case out of the box. Like I said, NZXT H510. Looks pretty clean. Got the tempered glass here. Yeah, that's a protective film. Making sure that's not a scratch. Yeah, and it looks pretty clean. Like from the front, it's clean. Got a clean logo down here. NZXT. You can hardly see it. It's got USB-C, USB-A. I think that's probably a headphone jack, power. Looks like there's a decent sized fan in there. The thing that I've seen that's really nice about this case is, especially since my board it's not going to take up all the space in there, it's only going to be a part of it. But also down underneath, you can see there's like a little compartment, almost like a basement, and that's for like a nice big space for the power supply to live. There's good ventilation down there for the airflow there. So yeah, let's get this tempered glass cover off. So I went ahead and got the tempered glass cover off, and then on the other side I got this back panel off. There's some screws like this. They are Phillips or flathead, you can do either one. They also have these grips. I was able to get them off just by hand. There's 2 for the back plate. You just unscrew them. I didn't even need to take them off all the way. And they just kind of, from there, it just kind of got loose, and then you kind of swing it open and it comes off completely. Careful with the little dust shield on the inside so you don't grab it too hard. And on the other side, for the tempered glass, there's similarly right around here, there's like a hole. That's where there was another one, and you just take that out. I took it out completely. being very careful. I kind of had my hand in place to catch the tempered glass as I pulled it out. So yeah, that's how I got those off. So yeah, another cool thing about this case is with that back cover, back here you see all this space for cable management. Nobody really sees this side, but it does have some stuff in place, so you can kind of organize your cables a little bit, keep it hidden, keep the other side with the tempered glass looking clean. So yeah, I'm going to try and do that the best I can. I'm going to have to get some zip ties in a little bit. Alright, so first component we're going to start out with the power supply. I got this 650 watt here. So after doing some research, let me get this out of the box. Okay, so this is semi-modular. There's a lot of cables and stuff for a lot of different things you can do, but you don't have to use all the cables that come in the box. There's more in there if you have more stuff, but a lot of it we won't have to use, hopefully. So yeah, and then yeah, so after doing some research, so the biggest thing to pay attention to with power supply is the fan, where it's gonna face. And from that research, I noticed, or I heard that with this case in particular, you could go up and down with the fan, like either facing up or facing down with the fan inside there. But with this case, down, you see at the bottom here, there's a little vent with a dust filter, so we could face the fan downwards, get that airflow through there, and not have to worry about dust. So that's probably best. There might be some type of benefit the other way around. I can't really think of a big one, but yeah, there's maybe it sucks air out of the main area more. I don't know. It's kind of up to you, but here you get that dust filter in place. Might as well use it. So yeah. So now that I've got it out, I'm gonna go ahead and slide this power supply into place. I'll kind of go over some of the cables. Like I said, I'm not a pro, so I'll kind of explain them from the research I've done. Here's some of the more important cables. I should have untwisted these, gosh dang it. Okay, so we've got this harness. This, I forget what it's called, gosh dang it. So this with the fancy harness on it, the 20+4 pin, pretty much everyone needs to use this. This freaking chungus of a freaking cable wire thing. Yeah, so that's this. And then we've got these bad boys, the 4+4. Sometimes you only need to use 4, depends on your build. Sometimes you need to use all 8 of these pins. That's why they have it split off. Depends on your build. I gotta look and see what we need for this build. Give me one sec. Next up, we've got this 6+2 pin. So here again, you got the 2 that separate away. Depending on your graphics card, you might need 6, you might need 8, you might need more of these. Really depends. I need to figure out what we need. Oh, what's this red one? Yeah, I'm not a pro. I don't. Alright, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Okay, I figured it out. So this red goes into the power supply, and it goes to this, and then there's another one. Yeah. So I kind of jumped the gun and threw the power supply in there already, but I need to connect this red cable, red connector. So let's do that now. Also, I know I'm jumping, cutting out, like, connecting the actual wire, so you can't see that. It's because I'm holding this by this camera by hand. I don't have a tripod. Hopefully one of these days I can get a tripod or maybe a webcam. I don't know. I could do streaming or better videos, but yeah, for now I'll come back when this is connected. So once you get that slid in there, connected, you're gonna want to look in the box for the power supply. There's, oh, like I said, there's more cables. There's the rest of them, and there's like the power cable. Once, as far as I know for this build, don't think you need anything else. We'll come back to that. Yeah, we'll come back to that. But I'm pretty sure this is all I'm gonna need, at least for my build. And then there's the 4 tiny screws that come in the power supply box. So back here on the back of the case, you're gonna notice, let me see if I can turn this instead. So back here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 holes. You should be able to line it up with the power supply and just screw it in. I should have freaking mentioned this first. The only tools you're gonna freaking need, as far as I have heard, is like a Phillips screwdriver. Like that should take care of everything. I mean, I guess a box cutter or a knife to open the boxes, but a Phillips screwdriver, so far as far as I've heard, takes care of it. And I guess like your hands. Yeah. All right. So let me line that up and screw it in. Another good little tip is to do a cross pattern, just like if you're bolting up lug nuts on a tire, or you know, a lot of things. Cross pattern just kind of keep the forces even on the screws. So, yep. Now, if you hear any noise in the background, just so you know, my boy Isaac is on the Discord. Shout out Isaac. But yeah, so update. I got the power supply in. I got the hole positions are slightly different than I originally thought. So there's like holes on the case here, here, whatever. But then there's these little slot cutouts for like this one for screws, depending on your power supply orientation and whatever. So yeah, so it ended up for mine, since I placed the fan facing down, screw here and like a slot kind of like that one. So screw here, and like another cutout slot. Here there was an actual hole lineup, and here there was an actual hole lineup. And it lined up pretty well. The only thing is it was a little bit off, just a smidge, where it was making this one a little hard to get into that slot properly. So just because you might have this issue if you're building and using the same stuff, I put this screw in first, and I didn't tighten it all the way, but I just kind of got it nice and a little bit snug, and then I was able to get the rest kind of in and then tighten down in that cross pattern. So, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever the case is. So yeah, so the power supply is now in, locked and loaded. So next up we got the motherboard. I'm gonna head and get that open. I'm gonna start messing around with that. So let's get this open. So here we got the motherboard out. I'll kind of run you through some of the stuff that at least I know about. So here's where your CPU goes. You kind of essentially just drop that in. Yeah. So again, I'm using the Ryzen 7, AMD Ryzen 7 3600X. Here you've got your DIMM slots, your RAM, whatever you want to call them, slots. Pretty sure you want to use the gray ones first. Those are like the primary ones, and then if you have more, you can use the other slots too. But the gray ones, I'm pretty sure are the main ones that you would put, the first ones you would put your RAM in. So yeah, here's that 20 pin whatever connector from the power supply that goes here, and then there's the 6+2 or whatever, or crap, what the heck is that freaking? So this is the 8-pin power supply. We'll come back to that, but that's where that goes. That's from the power supply. So you have two things coming from the power supply and the board. So you have this and that. Down here, so this is where you're gonna plug in your GPU, your graphics card. There's a second one in case you want to go crazy and put in another one, or you can put it in like a capture card, Wi-Fi card, whatever. Here is your M.2 for your, like if you have an M.2 SSD, connects right there. And then there's like these little screws. So depending on what type of SSD you have, 42, 60, 80, or 110, I forget the full designation, you're gonna put in a screw right in there to hold it in so that it doesn't fall out. And yeah, I think that's, I mean there's more, but yeah, let's move on. Now next up, we are going to focus on putting this bad boy up in there. So let me get this open and I'll show you. Here's some ASMR for you. So we got everything out. So here we have our processor, and here we have the cooler. Pretty nice heatsink. This is apparently the AMD coolers, like I've mentioned before, are pretty solid. Look at that freaking heatsink. Calculate the surface area on that if you're in fluids. Oh yeah. Another thing to note. So apparently a lot of coolers for like all processors, so like Intel or AMD or whatever, they usually, I guess, now come with pre-applied thermal paste here. Don't touch it. I haven't touched it. I didn't touch it there. Yeah, don't touch it. But yeah, you essentially don't have to worry about dealing with thermal paste. You just kind of set it on there and you're good to go. So yeah, all right, let's move on. Let's get this CPU in there. Let me open that up. Actually, before I open it up, so I'm going to kind of show you guys how this looks. So on the, well, without taking it out, because it's a very fragile component. This is the brains of your computer. There's a lot of little pins here. It's hard to see through the package, but they're little pins sticking out. Kind of see there. They're very fragile. If they get bent, you could just destroy your CPU potentially. So when you're holding it, hold it by the edges. Be very careful to not bend any of those. Don't touch those pins even. Do not touch them, please. I mean, I guess it's your money. You can touch it whatever if you want, but I do not recommend that. Do not touch those pins. And then, so here's the slot. So essentially what you do is you raise this arm. And when you do that, this whole thing just slides back. You can kind of see very slightly. Make sure that's up all the way. I don't want to break it, but make sure it's up all the way because it opens up everything in there. And then when you put your CPU in, you're just gonna set it on there. You're not gonna force it. You're not gonna apply any pressure. It just sinks in. I'm gonna see if I can record it, but if not, yeah, I'm just letting you know now because I don't have a good way of holding this camera, and I do not want to mess up my CPU. So, and then another thing to note. So you'll notice on the CPU, one of the corners here, it looks like it's this corner. There's a tiny, tiny little gold triangle that the other corners don't have. So that gold triangle is how you line it up. If you look here on the CPU slot, there's a triangle there. The other ones don't have triangles, or whatever. Yeah, that little triangle kind of looking thing. Yeah, so that's where that's the corner that the gold triangle from your CPU goes on. And again, you just set it there. It should sink in. If it doesn't, make sure that this is up all the way. If it's not going to be able to sink in properly. Don't apply pressure. And then one way to tell that it's in all the way is if you kind of look at it from the side, there shouldn't be a gap between the green chip and like the plastic. It should be flush. So yeah, so just be careful with this part, but it's generally pretty simple. So as long as you're very careful with it and you follow the instructions, you should be good. It's not hard. So I got my CPU in. That's where that's how it looks. Now we got to get this cooler in, the fan, and we got these two brackets here. For this, since it's kind of a bigger cooler, we take these brackets out. They're just Phillips screwdrivers, like I mentioned before. There is a backing plate. It's like a retention thing, that metal thing. That stays there. You just take these brackets out, and then yeah, you just kind of unscrew that, and then you can put the fan on. So now that you've got the brackets unscrewed, this lines up. It's pretty straightforward. These line up and go right into those holes. It doesn't matter which way it goes, if it's this way or this way. The only thing is there's an AMD logo here, so aesthetically you can put it the way you want. Yeah, I've got an open case, so I don't, I want it to look good. So yep. Alright, so I got it on. It's a little sketch because you feel like you're adding a lot of pressure. Just make sure you line it up properly, get it on there nice and even. Try not to, like, you know, move it around or you know, slide it around because there's that thermal paste on the bottom. But once you line it up, these screws are all like spring loaded, and then they all came to a stop when I was screwing them in, so you don't over tighten. And again, do the cross pattern here. Yeah, and now it's in. So now you have this cable. It's power for the fan. We have a connector here. It's a 4-pin. It also says on the board CPU fan, and then there's like 2 notches or whatever. So this can only go one way. So pretty straightforward. You just connect that there. Try not to bend any pins. All right, that's Guten tight. All right, cool. Next up, we got RAM. That goes there. So with RAM, you have these little notches that are like off center. That corresponds with like little notches in here. So they do go one way over the other. If it's not going down, it's probably because you got it backwards. And then again, we're gonna use these gray slots. Those are like the preferred or the priority slots. There's like asterisks next to the slots over here somewhere. I don't know, they're labeled. Those, yeah, so just use those first. And then, so first what you do is you kind of open these tabs up, and then you grab a thing, a RAM stick, slot it in the proper orientation, give it a nice firm press, and then these, I believe they go down by themselves when you push it. So, but yeah. So RAM's in. When you're sliding them in, make sure you have the right orientation. You're gonna want to give it a good firm push. Be careful with all these little like capacitors or resistors or whatever on the board. And then once there's like little slots on the side, that's where these clips go in. So once it kind of clicks down a little bit, and then you clip these up on each side, and it should be good. But RAM is in. Let's move on to SSD. Yeah, so go ahead and drop a freaking like if you hate this freaking packaging. Look at this stuff. How the heck? Okay, well, I will get it. Now for the SSD, remember you got this M.2 slot here, and you've got the 3 different holes for the screws. This is the screw that's going to kind of hold the SSD in on the other end, and sometimes that comes with the motherboard. Sometimes it's in a separate little bag in the box. It's really small and hard to find, so don't lose it. And sometimes it's like in my case, it's just already pre-installed into the hole. That's the 81. I again forget the whole designation. That's the most common, as I think, what I'm using for the size of SSD. It helps to have a smaller Phillips head screwdriver. I don't think you need one if you really don't have one, but having a small one helps. Yeah, so just get that out. There's like a little adapter underneath too, I think, just as like a little support for the SSD, so it's not sitting flat on the motherboard. But yeah, get that little screw out, but leave the adapter in, and then you just slide the thing in there and screw it down, and yeah. So now I've got my SSD in. It was really fast. So essentially, here's the SSD. You're gonna put it into the slot, kind of at an angle, slight angle, so you can work it in. You're gonna notice there's like a little. See if I can zoom in here. I can't zoom in. Well, there's a little tiny notch right there. So that lines up with your SSD. You put it in an angle, and then once it's in and slot it in all the way or whatever, you just push it down with your finger gently. It feels weird. It feels almost like you're bending it, but you're not. You're just push it down, and then you put that screw back in. So you take that screw out first, put it at an angle, push it down with your finger, and put the screw back in so it holds it. And there you go. That's really the easiest part of this so far. So next up, I brought this case back up. We're time to put the board in the case. I recommend using a bigger desk for this, or bigger table. I only have this. I'm floor gang right now, you know. Don't have a desk yet, getting one soon. So yeah. For those who know. And then, so we're gonna have this board in here. So one thing to kind of look at. Every case is kind of different, I guess, but there's these little things that stick out to like standoff, so like it holds your motherboard up so it doesn't sit directly on the case. And then there's this one right here is like a little peg. It doesn't have any screws, but all the other ones have like threads for screws. So that's what's gonna hold the board in, and this helps us line up the board. So yeah, you just kind of line it up. Generally, this will help us, I guess, and then screw it in and move on. Let me get that in now. Almost forgot. Before you put that in, you got this I/O plate. It goes back here. You kind of pop it into place, and it's for all your ports off your board. So you can plug stuff in on the outside. It just kind of makes it look nice and seals it up. This comes with your motherboard. It's one of those things. It's like not 100% necessary. Like your computer still works fine without it, but makes it look nicer and keeps it sealed. So you know, it's better to, I guess, use it. You got it, and I don't know, it comes with everything, so might as well use it, you know. And yeah, I would say do that now before your board's in, so it's easy to do. I heard these are kind of a pain, so I'm gonna get mine in now and get the board in. So I popped the I/O shield in. It's easy to pop it in the corners if you just kind of like from the inside pop the corners in. Just try your best. Sometimes you pop one corner in and another one will pop out, so just get all four corners like popped nicely and make sure it stays. It also helps you line up your I/O ports from your motherboard when you put your motherboard in. So I went ahead and slid the board in. I haven't tightened it down yet, but remember I mentioned that peg that sticks out? That comes out right here. There's like little holes in the motherboard that have like these little solder points all around. They look like, I don't know, whatever, peppermint looking, whatever you would call that. Yeah, so that peg kind of lines up in there. Once you have that there, and then your I/O, you don't want to line up your I/O back there. Once you have that all lined up, you just kind of set it down. It keeps itself in place, and then you can just kind of screw it all in from the other holes. There's a bunch of screws. I believe it comes with the case. There's a whole bunch of them. And again, try to use like a cross pattern, keeping the pressure on all the screws even all the way around. And make sure that's snug. So these are the screws. I'm pretty sure these are the screws. They work, they fit. So I'm going with them. So these are the screws that come with your case. There's a bunch of other screws that come with the case, but these are the ones that, these are one of the bags of screws that come with the case for putting the motherboard into the case, screwing it in those holes. And I noticed I only had 3 holes to screw it in, and then there was that one peg that sticks through. The way you can kind of tell, I'm pretty sure it's the bag with like 1,000,000 screws in it. The other ones have less. They still have a lot, but not as many. So yeah, I'm pretty sure the bag with all the screws, I'm pretty sure that's the one for your motherboard, because there's potentially could be more holes for you to screw in if you went with a bigger board. But I went with a smaller board in here. So another thing that might be helpful to start with is make sure you have a lot of light. I wish I had a light. And sometimes getting your hands in to place the screws in the holes, it's kind of a tight squeeze in like here and in like here. So having like pliers, like needle nose pliers, helps. Just be very careful with them around stuff on the board. You don't want to break anything. Yeah, so here, once you get those screws in and everything, tighten it down in that cross pattern, you should be able to just flip it up and make sure, you know, nothing's falling out and breaking, and you're good. And now time to put in the GPU. there it is, the GPU, the graphics card. This baby will allow you to freaking fly, and among other things, it's gonna feel like you're in GTA as you get shot. This is it. Here you have your, I believe that's like the PCI slot, whatever it's called. Yeah, it's hard to see, but that lines up in that one slot right there. It's real dark. There's like the two slots here, right here, going in that top one. I'm always sketched out by this because that's like I'm pretty sure that's like the only thing supporting this freaking chunky freaking thing. Look at the freaking tubing. That's sick. Sorry, I've just never really gotten up and close and personal with these things before, and this is cool. So anyways, yeah, plug that in there, and I think that's it. Let me double check that. Alright, so I'm kind of a dingus. This freaking thing, it clips in there, like I said, but then you also have to remove some of these backing plates. I believe it's just the top two for this, just because you have some I/O for your visuals, so like DisplayPort, HDMI, stuff like that. So yeah, for this case I think it's pretty easy. You take off these two screws on this like cover thing right here, and this comes off, and then you can then take off like individually those like graded covers. Yeah, like I said, I think we only need the first two, and then you just kind of pop your GPU in there and make sure that's lined up, and you're good. And that's it. So I'm gonna do that now. I also recommend you watching this if you're using this as like a guide for your PC. I recommend watching this once before you do it. That way, you know, you make sure you see the whole process, and like you don't do something where I made a mistake and make the same mistakes I did. Yeah, so just watch this once over, and then you can use it as a guide and kind of pause through it as you do yours, whatever you want to do. I don't know, do what you want to do, but that's what I recommend. All right, so it's in. It felt really sketch pushing the freaking GPU into the slot because it looked like, I don't know, it just looks and feels like you're gonna break the freaking board, but I got it in, it clicked. Make sure it clicks in like the little tabs. They're kind of like the RAM slots. They have tabs that they're, I think, pre-opened. Make sure they're open, and you just push the thing in, and it locks into place. A couple of updates from what I said before. Turns out it's the second and third slots, not the first slot, so I put the first one back in. Another thing, the GPU has like this back bracket, like this middle plate for the I/O, and it sticks out here so that you can screw it in to like add support. It's really hard to see, there's just no lighting here, but you can kind of see it, like right here. Right here, there's two screws that I was able to put in. But yeah, they're just the screws that came to hold these brackets in. I just screwed those in back in their slots, so it kind of lines up really nice with the Sapphire GPU, so that works out pretty well. And yeah, let's move on from there. I think next we're gonna get to cable management, so start plugging stuff in, making sure it's looking good and powers up and stuff. So the back of my case, well, my case has two fans, one here and one on the back here, and there's two cables that run down the back, one for each fan. And then I also have a CPU fan, right, the cooler. But on my motherboard, I just noticed I only have two, like they call them headers, or like the pins for fans. So I either need to get a splitter, which is what most people recommend, so you can put the two case fans on one, and then you can have them both controlled by the motherboard and control speeds. Or you can plug one straight into the power supply, so one fan will be running constantly. So I did that because I don't have an adapter, and I kind of, the power supply gave me like this cable, so it's like a cable with like a bunch of stuff on it. So like it's got this, and then it goes to this, and then it goes to this, and I got some jumper wires from my Arduino kit that I have, and I jumped them because it's female to female, so I need a female male and then male to female, whatever connectors. So yeah, kind of ghetto. I'll get an adapter later, but I'm gonna have one fan going straight to power all at all times. So whatever. Hopefully those wires don't. They can hold up and stuff, because I know they're cheap. And then I just went ahead and plugged in the big Chungus freaking. Can I turn my fan? Am I like? Oh, sweet. The big freaking Chungus cable. If you look closely at the connector, it tells you which way to go, and it also has a locking clip on this side. But yeah, just it routes through there, and then on the back, you can route it on this little, at least for this case, there's a little cable channel, and you can, there's Velcro there, you can hold it down. That way it's like nice and organized, and it runs straight down into where the power supply goes, so that's really nice. Alright, so I added this 4+4 pin connector. There's like 2 of them, I remember from earlier. That connects up there. It only goes one way, there's like tabs on it. And then I connected the PCI, the GPU cable. It's a 6+2. There's like 2 of them too on this connector from the power supply or whatever. So yeah, I mean, you only need to use one, and then you can just kind of hide the other one. I don't think it matters which one you use. They're both wired up together, so it shouldn't matter. I mean, if it does, or if there's, I don't know, some convention, then I haven't heard of it, but yep. Now, there's a few more cables. You've got this one. It's for your audio. The cable, the connector said HD audio. On the board it says F audio. Here, this is your like connectors up top, like your I think it's like power, like your power button and stuff. This is USB 3.0. Apparently, if you ever try to take this out, it sometimes gets stuck. So if you ever have to take this out to take your computer apart, just be careful taking this out. Yeah, and you just kind of plug them in. These two here, these 2 cables, you'll notice one pin is missing, so make sure you line it up properly. You know what, I can see what this one is. COM, it says COM here. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that's for like your power switch and stuff. Yeah, and then once you've plugged those in, you know, you can manage your cables on the back as you go. I've kind of done a little bit of that, so it's not as nasty back here, not as much of a mess. Once you're done with that, it's done. It's built. Time to plug it in to a monitor, mouse, keyboard, and plug it into the wall. Make sure it works. Get into like the BIOS and like and put Windows on it. So one last thing, I made a big dingus move. This thing wouldn't turn on for a bit, and I was like, what the heck? And after 30 minutes of looking over this diagram of the motherboard, I realized that COM cable I told you guys about a little earlier, the one that has the 1 pin missing there, you can see that's not the only one with 1 pin missing. There's another like connector there and there for the USBs. But the COM cable, like I said, it was for this front power button, but it's not supposed to go on the COM port or the COM header or whatever. It's supposed to go here, which you would never guess, because look at all those pins, those extra pins. But then if you look on the motherboard, it specifies what each pin is kind of for. And after looking into it a little more, really the only pins that are used is like, there's like 2 of them, and one's for power and one's for reset, and that's for this button. So just make sure you have it lined up. Again, on the motherboard it tells you, so you want it all the way to the left as possible, and you remember there's that one missing pin there. Line that up properly, and then the last like 5 pairs of like pins here, so like those don't even get used. It's just the left 5. So yeah, showing you this mistake because I mean, I'm sure it could be made by anyone else, because that doesn't look like the right thing. It looks like it belongs there, but whatever. We got it working now. and I'm in the BIOS setting stuff up. So here it is, fully built. I got all my peripherals connected, I installed Windows, kind of got everything updated, drivers. I'm installing some games now, some stuff. Kind of organized my little office space here where I worked. This is where like I built it. I don't know, it's kind of transformed now, but yeah, the only thing I have left, the only reason I haven't closed it is because you can see if I turn on the flashlight, if it lets me, oh, it won't let me, my battery's low, but you see I have the two fans there, the one case fan and then the CPU cooler, and there's another fan up top. That fan up top has a cable, but my motherboard only has 2 slots for fans, so I'm using it for the CPU cooler and that back fan. So what I'm gonna do is I'm ordering a splitter where I can connect both fans to the same header, and then both of them will be controlled. You can also connect that top fan directly to the power supply, but then it'll be constant and will be controlled by the motherboard. So I'm just gonna get a splitter. It was like $5 on Amazon for a pack of 2 of them. So yeah, other than that, it's done. For installing Windows and all that stuff, there's a video I kind of followed that can explain it better than me, so I'm going to link that somewhere on the screen here or somewhere in the description, and then I'll link up a couple other videos that I kind of used as like my basis for the build and this video I made. Shout out to Bae for helping pick stuff up from the store, and Danny and cousin Mike and some of the other SAE guys for helping me out with questions, and shout out to Isaac for freaking helping me troubleshoot some stuff last night, and yeah, hopefully everything works out for your build. Alright, cool, see ya.